What's up, my friends? Welcome back to the Snodcast. You're listening to episode number 2. I had my friend Matt Herbert on. Known this guy since high school. Super funny guy. Super charismatic. Always making me laugh. Wanted to have him on because he's been going through some really cool sort of personal transformation type stuff. He's gotten really into Kung Fu and martial arts, and he's been traveling back and forth to China to study. So, pretty authentic method there of learning the style. And he's also just kind of really, gotten himself together. He's quit drinking, lost a bunch of weight. I feel like what he's been doing is just really inspirational. But also, he's just a good storyteller. So I figured this was a no-brainer to have this guy on before he flies back to China for his third time next Tuesday. So that is the basis of this episode. We mostly talked about, we talk about The Simpsons. We talk about working in retail. And we talk about, what it's like being in a foreign country, not knowing the language, things like that. So hope you enjoy. This one's just a little over an hour. Listen to as little or as much as you want, and we'll catch you on the next one. Check.
Check.
Matt,
Hey, Graham.
what's up, dude?
It's good to see you. Good to be here.
I'm glad that you're here too. This is only the second time we've been able to hang out in a year or more.
The last time was September or October.
Okay.
2017.
Okay. And the reason for this is because you've been traveling back and forth to China, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to get into all that for sure. I definitely think that people will want to hear kind of what you're doing over there and the experience of just that kind of travel. But let's start at the beginning, bro. How did you and I meet?
All right. I'm gonna go way back. It must be coming up on 20 years now.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oof. So it was 2002, so not quite, but 2001, 2002, we were both on the cross-country team, which I was doing to get in shape for wrestling. I wasn't super invested in it, but it seemed fun. We were both waiting to be picked up by our parents because that's what life is like then. And we both landed on the same Simpsons reference at the same moment.
Oh my God.
And it was, let's just say I'm sitting in the right chair. And we either both said it in unison. I think that's what it was, yes?
I don't remember. That's why I'm asking you.
Okay. It was, I'm 99% certain that's what it was.
Oh.
And so we got to the end of the line and we just looked at each other and we knew. We knew we'd one day be making a podcast.
Yeah. The Simpsons nerds have to stick together. Are you watching any of the new episodes of The Simpsons?
I'm not, although a couple times on the plane, there's this one episode that I see all the time, or twice now, I should say, that it's new and it kind of has that new Simpsons flavor that's actually been around for a long time now.
Oh yeah.
But it was good. It was a good one. And there's a couple that I've really enjoyed over the last couple of years, but it doesn't have that, seasons like 3 through 8, or I even like to say into like 9 and 10. Magic that, we're so fond of.
Yeah. I would say for sure, like 3 to like 11 or 12.
Yeah, there's good ones even extending a little further than that, but it's they're all just so nice and clustered together there for us.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Do you have a favorite Simpsons character?
Oh.
And if it comes down to needing to pick 3, that's fine too.
I'm just gonna go with one just because it's harder. First person that came to mind was Mo.
Okay.
He's not someone I aspire to be, but we all have some Mo in us.
Yeah.
At times. And it's both a fun and kind of scary thing to reflect on sometimes, is, something will slip out of my mouth and I realize like that had way more Moe in it than I'm comfortable with.
A little bit self-deprecating, in other words.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And he's just such a sleazeball. Again, this is not someone you aspire to be, but you find yourself kind of stumbling across sometimes.
I'm going to share probably one of my favorite Moe quotes with you right now, and it goes something like this. I'm better than dirt. Well, most types of dirt. Not that store-bought stuff. I can't compete with that.
I love that one.
Do you have a favorite one off the top of your head?
When I first said Moe, the thing that came to mind is he's trying to goad somebody into something. He's like, "Come on, do it for your pal Mosey."
Yes. Good impression, too. I really like that. The Simpsons is really what kind of brought us together as friends. And so it's like, I don't want to spend the whole episode talking about The Simpsons, but just maybe one or two more questions. Like, what do you think you like so much about The Simpsons? Like, what attracted you to it? The writing style and the humor.
The humor was a big part of it. It was unlike anything else I was watching at the time. Most of the time, when you thought about watching stuff that had like adult humor in it, it was crass, or it was like more along the lines of like Beavis and Butthead, and quote unquote inappropriate, stuff your parents would object to.
Right, because we were kids when this was all coming on, so we had to get their permission to watch shows like that.
Yes, and a lot of times,
most people, not me.
And a lot of times it was, I'm not allowed to watch The Simpsons,
right.
But like everybody had seen a couple of Simpsons. They all went to that one kid's house whose mom didn't care.
Exactly, that was my mom.
Yeah. I recall that. Best fake report card ever.
Oh man, we should tell that story for sure. Okay, so what was I just gonna say? Oh, did you have more to say though on The Simpsons? Than what you like The Simpsons?
Once you'd spent a little bit of time there, Springfield felt very familiar, and it's kind of cliche, but like in a kind of like going home sort of way.
Yeah.
That was the biggest part of it. That and the characters. I mean, it's not. Again, I don't identify with Moe, but like somebody like Lisa, like everybody can kind of latch on to sort of like her struggles here and there. So I mean, it was the place, the setting, the writing, the characters. It had heart. It was funny. It was kind of the whole package in a way that many things weren't back then.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, that's how we met. Definitely, we bonded over that show. I think our sense of humor is so in alignment. I mean, I tell people all the time, you're like one of the funniest people I know. I think there's something about you and I where we could almost have like a conversation that just sounds like it's out of a TV show, like The Simpsons. I bet you we could even probably have like dialogue that goes back and forth that's like comprised of just like Simpsons quotes. So, but tell me a little bit more about like kind of what happened after. Like, talk to me a little bit about like things that started happening after high school and stuff. How did your tastes evolve, and what kind of things were you interested in after you and I, we had our meeting in high school and then we started going our separate ways. So talk to me about kind of what stuff you started getting into after high school. Sure.
I was always, and still am, a big fan of comedy. So that was always part of what I was doing. For a few years, I was very heavily into Pearl Jam as well. Like, I followed them around. I think I ended up seeing them about 30 times.
Wow, more times than I've seen Fish.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Now it seems excessive.
No, it's perfect, bro. That's awesome.
Most of these were in the summers of 05 and 06. Kind of did like the whole like up and down the East Coast thing. Went out to Seattle 2 times to see them at the Gorge.
Dude.
And a lot of the music that I came to appreciate was stuff that I kind of like found like connected to them, like bands that were opening for them, or on the message boards, because that's what the internet back then was message boards and stuff.
True.
Now we have
True
Reddit, but
oh yeah,
it was, you had to log into the message boards and all that back then. But things that other people that liked it would say, oh, yeah, I like this. You should try this. It was sort of like the Spotify algorithm, but like manual, like people doing it. So that influenced my music for a long time, as did the Tony Hawk video games, because they always had a combination of really good rap and rock and hip hop and punk. And one of my favorite bands, like forever, has been Bad Religion.
Okay.
And that's because of the song "You" from Tony Hawk 2. It just from the first time I heard it, it was just on my wavelength and just has this great energy. And it turns out all their songs are like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then so like all our tastes do over time, like the things I listened to kind of grew from there and evolved. And I hate to put it this way because I hate when other people say it, but like I do truly like a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I usually hate that because it usually is said by someone who seems to not really have any true opinions on anything. But I'm kind of being like an angry like hipster about it.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, I do like a little bit of everything. And I credit that to having really cool friends.
Awesome.
Who show me cool stuff.
Okay, and I take it that you started meeting some really cool new people after high school as well.
I did.
Yeah, found some good connections there.
Yeah. Over the years, just I worked mostly retail jobs, and I met a lot of really great people and a lot of other people too. And a few of them have hung around throughout the years. And of course, I've continued to meet a lot of interesting people in the last few years as well.
What are take me back to some stories from retail. I mean, I've worked retail jobs too. I worked at like Circuit City and Starbucks, and it's like there's some memories that I'm just never gonna forget in terms of just like really like awkward or hilarious like stories from retail. I think there's even like a subreddit. It's like r/ like tales from retail or something.
I think so.
Why don't you grace me with a few good stories here from your retail days?
Well, I think you and I actually ended up passing like ships in the night with Circuit City because I think right after you quit, which I think there's actually a funny story with that.
Oh yes, there is.
It was right after you quit that I started at that same store.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of the same folks in common. It was around this time that Circuit City was going out of business.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was part of it was because they failed to adapt to the marketplace, and like Best Buy was, I guess, killing it back in like the early like 2004, 2005 era. And it was funny how inept everyone that had anything to do with running Circuit City was at running Circuit City, like all the way from the top to the bottom. So it was a very fun time to work there because every week or so, the higher ups would hatch this new plan, like this is how we're gonna get Best Buy, and then they would come and they would bring that down to us and kind of they forgot to like shine it up, and like they still had like the cartoonish like silly villain plans and like the hand wringing. So one time their plan was, okay, we're gonna have you guys walk right up to everybody that comes in and ambush them with this whole story about how like, hey, I know you're concerned about how the prices aren't the same everywhere. So what I did, I personally was I went to all the stores and wrote down all the prices on my clipboard, and here I'm showing you all the prices. And it was this long scripted silliness that we were supposed to say to every single person we walked up to. And of course, you've got our guy with a clipboard, 20 feet away watching to make sure, yeah, is he saying the whole thing? I don't know, it looks like he didn't say the proper greeting right there. Yeah. So that was Circuit City. I mean, you're familiar with how everyone there was kind of just kind of running around at the end.
My memory of Circuit City was that I was pressured by management to sell a lot of warranties and protection plans. And I remember on numerous occasions being what was considered a platinum level seller, but I never received any commission. Yet I'm pretty sure that the managers did. Like if the salesman's numbers were good, I think the managers got bonuses, but the salesman did not. That's kind of what I remember about the dynamic of it.
I think so. I think they had just gotten rid of commission, and it was this whole like big thing. A lot of their longtime people were like all about it.
So you never received any commission working there?
Not a dime.
Okay.
No. But I wasn't supposed to. But also not a dime.
So if money and time and academic, education weren't, factors, what are your like 3 dream careers?
Ooh. Something I'm still figuring that out. I think I would have answered this differently even a year ago. So the things that I'm figuring out, I would say I'd like to do something that is in some way performance based.
Okay.
I've always been drawn to comedy, and on my short and long to do lists are, sit down and try to come up with like a 5 minute set, and actually practice it and bug my friends with it and all that stuff. So that's something that I'd like to play around with.
Stand-up comedy specifically.
Stand up, yeah. And I know you said if everything else is a factor, like I don't think that's something that I necessarily will be able to make a career of or that level, but it's just I want to do it. It's fun.
Yeah, this is all hypothetical.
Sure.
It's just whatever you would want it to be.
And anything that I end up with as a quote unquote career, if that's even kind of an important word anymore, it has to be something I'm just stoked about all the time too. Or I'll keep looking.
I admire that.
Thank you. One of my goals is to not ever wear a tie again.
Okay.
That might be silly. I might obviously. Oh, Matt, you didn't think about that when that happened or whatever it is. But for now, I'm sticking with that. Which
jobs did you have to wear a tie at?
Not many, but I'm not gonna either. It's just I don't have time. I don't have time for that. I gotta find it, and I forgot it at the house, and it's got coffee on it, and I don't need all that. So I guess one of the other things I'd like to do, I've already started doing a little bit, and that's some instruction. I teach some kids right now a little bit of kung fu.
That's awesome.
So and at this level, I'm not dropping any cool wisdom on them or showing them neat moves. It's at this point, it's pretty much like, hey, zip it, hold still. Eyes forward. Don't touch that kid. Stop it. Zip it. And then, kind of cycling through those things. And occasionally they throw a punch and a kick, and but that's what it is at that age. And really at any age, it's just sort of establishing that discipline so that, later on you can be taught to punch and kick and do the flying silliness, and people, hey, I thought I told you to zip it. We're past that by the time we're learning tornado kicks.
What do you think is the benefit of children learning those activities at such an early age?
A big part of it is obviously there's a lot of physical stuff, but socializing them. I've noticed that seems to be a lot of their kind of first go at it. I don't know what's going on at school, but there's some kids that don't seem like they've ever seen another kid before. So there's a lot of misbehaving, and again, hey, stop hitting each other, and we don't say that kind of thing. But so I think that kind of thing is very important at that age. And it doesn't have to be kung fu. You probably learn that same sort of thing being on a soccer team. But also just teaching them to use their bodies and use their arms and legs at the same time and have good balance. It's going to help them with literally everything they do. So
yeah, very cool. So what are you doing for work right now?
What am I doing for work right now? I am a professional driver. Which sounds cooler than Uber and Lyft, which is what I'm doing. But I can't talk enough about how much I love it and what a series of opportunities I've been able to go after because I'm doing this for my work.
That's cool. So you told me last time I hung out, you've been doing it for about 8 months. Is that right?
8 months ago, or 9 months ago, I think now, is when I started. So I guess collectively, I've done about 5 months.
Oh right. Okay.
Yeah, when I was here in the States, it just keeps getting better. I mean, part of it's because I kind of get used to all the rhythms of it, and I know when to not hang out in certain areas because everybody's hanging out there and there's no good rides, and sometimes certain areas are better. I mean, these are all things that obviously you pick up, but I'm getting them and I'm kind of putting them to practice, and it shows, and I can feel it kind of every time I go out, and it's just fun. I talk to people.
Yeah.
The only people, I mean, I can consider myself my boss, or you can think of it as like, okay, whoever the passenger is my boss. Now, the great thing about that is if I don't like my boss, in 10 minutes, I'm never, ever going to see them ever again.
Yeah.
And so, keeping with like the whole boss analogy, I never spend any of my time thinking about like, oh man, what's the boss gonna say? Oh man, I don't feel like going to work. Oh man, the boss is gonna say this, and this, and blah blah blah, and all that stuff that goes along with taking stress and stuff from work home. Like I don't have any of it.
That's beautiful.
So yeah, it's truly the best gig I've ever had.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What's just tell me a quick story real quick about someone you picked up recently that was super interesting. Like tell me about like a connection you made with somebody, and specify whether it was with Uber or Lyft, because I know that you do both.
I do both. Usually, I do Uber more than Lyft. It seems there are more customers here in this region that use Uber. Man. Okay, so recently, I had my longest and most lucrative trip recently. So it was from Aberdeen to the airport.
Oh yeah.
And it ended up being 3 digits.
Wow, nice.
Which is uncommon, very uncommon. But that was nice, and she was sweet, and it was around 5 a.m, and she was just listening. She was just hanging on my every word. And that's a very good time to have a customer like that, because at that point I'll have had my second or third coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really starting to, pep me back up for kind of my second wind.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I can go on, and she was a great audience, and kind of going and all that at the right times, and
What do you find that you're mostly talking to them about?
oh man, whatever pops into my head. I'm usually just kind of winging it. A lot of times they'll ask questions like, "Oh, how do you like driving for Uber?"
Do they say it just like that?
Every single time, regardless of sex or age, and how do you like driving for Uber? So I say, "Well, little girl, I'll tell you." And I always give them a kind of a different answer, but it's I love it, and then I sort of steer it like in a different direction, because it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's boring to say, well, yeah, I start at 9 o'clock and I go. So and then every day is different too. That's one of the things I value in any job. So it's very nice to be able to have it here as well.
Cool, man. So the reason that you've taken a break from Uber is known to me. Let's get into this now. So you're getting ready to leave to go back to China in how many days from right now?
It's next Tuesday, so it's 8 days.
In 8 days, you'll be going back to China. And why are you going back to China for your third time?
In China, I spend a couple months here and there. 6 months out of the year is kind of the trend lately. I study Shaolin Kung Fu on a what used to be a farm, and then it's been converted into a nice school, just kind of out in the middle of like a rural area, up north beyond the wall, by the way, which is fun to say because it gives a very Game of Thrones vibe to the whole thing.
Did you watch last night?
I didn't watch last night. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to while I'm there.
Yeah.
The internet is kind of back and forth, and I'd rather watch it alone anyway than with like 6 people all like crowding around and like yelling at the Lannisters or whatever's happening.
Okay. So you think maybe you'll wait and then watch it all at the end, just binge it all by yourself at the end in a couple months from now?
Whenever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm yeah, I think so.
Okay, excellent. So third time going back to China, you're studying Kung Fu. I mean, it's like, there's so many different questions I feel like I could ask right now. And hopefully we'll get to all of them, but like, because I want to talk about like what it's like being in China and not speaking the language, things like that. But do you want to maybe talk a little bit about like what got you interested in Kung Fu in the first place?
Sure. There's really a couple factors. One of the biggest ones is when you first decide you're gonna study a martial art, you have to you have a lot of questions. You have to research, like, what kind should I do? What, based on my interests, like, and my body type, and what have I done before that might, benefit me here? So you do a little bit of research, and you can go to the actual schools, and look around, or a lot of people kind of just do the internet research phase, and it kind of ends there, unfortunately. But the first step is figuring out where your school is going to be. And I was lucky. The first place I went to was actually closed forever. But the first like live actual place I went to, I went up at around, the class was supposed to start at 6. I went up there at 5:30 because, like every gym you go to, there's probably going to be like the sales pitch and like, this is how much it is a month, and here's the lockers and blah, blah, that kind of stuff. So I figured, okay, well, let's do that before so we can get kind of right into the class stuff. I get there, and there's only one person in there. There's a woman. She's standing up at the front of the classroom, and I can tell right away that she's cool. Like, there's nothing, she's not doing anything. She's just like looking at a piece of paper, I think. She's not doing anything specific that gives away that she's cool, but like, it's just super obvious. Like, it's known right away.
What do you mean by that? Like her body language?
I've thought about that. I don't know. Like, it's just it right away identified, like, that's the coolest person I've ever seen.
Okay.
Maybe it's because she was standing at the front of a kung fu school. That is part of it. But anyway, I go in, I introduce myself, and just right away, she couldn't wait to, like, welcome me to the world and like show me, like, this is it. This is kung fu. Like, I'm super excited about it. I'm excited you're here. You're gonna be excited about it. And it was just this infectious like energy, and love for it all. And it just kind of grabbed me, and so I signed up. I signed up that day for kung fu and tai chi.
This was here, I'm guessing. This was somewhere in America.
This was here in Parkville.
Okay. Parkville, okay.
At Goes Kung Fu in Parkville.
All right, got it.
Which, so that was a little more than 2 years ago now.
Okay.
So I started that, and like, the first lesson is tough because, you're out of shape. I was out of shape anyway. And you're doing these low stances that are designed to build up leg strength. And basically, 2 days later, I can't move. It's great. But I stuck with it, and I could do those stances and still move the next day. Mm-hmm. Which is a lot of fun.
Okay. So you go into this school in Parkville. How in the world then do you make this decision to say, you know what, this isn't legit enough. I want to go deeper. I'm fucking going to China. Like, how did you arrive at that decision?
Okay. Well, one thing, there wasn't any sort of, this isn't like legit enough kind of stuff. It was just more of like I want to explore the world.
Oh, okay.
Like I belong to and am affiliated with both schools. And plan to be, like, for ever, I guess.
Okay.
What happened first is we have a book club there too. So we read this book, and it was about a woman named Lindsay Way, and kind of an experience similar to mine with getting started. Like, she started here in America, and she decided, I'm gonna travel and check things out. And that's sort of, even though intellectually I knew, like, oh, the people can do those things, it kind of suddenly became like, oh, wait, I could do that. Mm-hmm. Why not? I'd never done any traveling before, so there were a couple layers of like, well, I could do that. Well, I could get a passport that I had to work through.
Okay, so you had never left the country before.
I'd never left. I went to Canada in 2005, but it was part of following Pearl Jam around. So it was like I was going to another country, but like to do very American things. Mm-hmm. Like I wasn't like really expanding my horizons.
But did you have a passport then? Do you need to show a passport at the Canadian border? I forget.
It was shortly after that you started.
Okay.
We just had to like get off a bus with like a bunch of strangers and like hang out in like a little cement room for like a few minutes.
Oh wow,
And
sounds
then
intense.
get back on. It was a very medium mild experience actually. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that was the only time prior
Mhm.
was going to Canada, and that was a long time ago. So yeah, there was a few layers of like, can I do this? Yes, I can. Cool. That I kind of had to work through, and then it became like a matter of researching the school because there's a lot. First of all, there's a lot of them. They all have websites that sound fake because they want to be found by Americans or other English speaking people. So they pretty much all have like 10 words, 10 of like the most famous Kung Fu words. And like, they're all just like different combinations of these. So like Kung Fu School China is my school's website. And then there's other ones. The other ones are all like School in China Kung Fu. And like
You're talking about the URL, right? Like the .com address?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And like Shaolin Dragon Kung Fu.
Oh, see, that
Dragon-
sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, right?
Why didn't you go with that one?
I think that one's actually just a made up example.
Okay.
Unfortunately. But give it time, it'll exist.
Maybe we should buy that URL.
We could. But yeah, so I bring that up because every time I tell people the website, which is kungfuschoolchina.com, it
Nice
just
plug.
sounds silly. Yeah, right. Yeah. So the research phase was basically a lot of, you go to the websites, they all have like pictures that make them look cool. It'll have like a monk like jumping, flying around in the air, like swinging swords, and like things that look cool, things that look like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and
Yes.
Hero, and things that a lot of us picture when we probably make the decision to do Kung Fu.
Is
Or
there
based on-
flying?
There's very little flying. What's interesting is the shoes, like the Kung Fu shoes that everyone in the world wears, Fei Wei. It pretty much, it's a verb that means like to become aloft, to take flight.
Oh wow.
And it's basically the verb that is describing that thing that like in that genre of movie you see
Wow.
people do like that. Whoosh, like
Nice.
across the
TIL.
tree. Yeah. And then that word plus Dao, which is like that plus road, is how they say parkour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is I think it's neat. Learning Chinese is so neat.
So you have learned some of the language then, Mandarin, right?
Yes. A little, not enough to really speak or say anything interesting, but just enough to describe that Fei Wei Dao, like that parkour thing from just a second ago.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say, just in case there's any Mandarin-speaking listeners? They can kind of see how legit you sound.
No, because I actually can't think of a single thing now.
Oh,
Except
okay.
for my name, Washu Mata.
Oh, okay. See, that sounded cool.
Yeah.
I'm down with hearing that.
Right, cool.
So then, is it overwhelming being in a country like that where I'm guessing, do they speak English? I mean, like how much English is being spoken when you're at this school?
At the school, English is the common tongue because not everyone speaks it, but most people, because it's folks from all over the world. It's not just Americans or folks from English-speaking places. It's everywhere.
Okay.
There tend to be a lot of Germans there, so that's probably the second most spoken language, or French.
Oh, neat.
So we all kind of pick up a little bit of these languages. So Chinese actually is not spoken. Mandarin's not spoken at the school, except for Shifu, like the master.
Mhm.
Will speak it to like the chef, for example.
Mm-hmm.
When we go into the city, which is about half an hour away, that's different. But I've never found it to be overwhelming. Most of the things I want are coffee, or in fact, that's the only thing I have to order or say to anyone, because everything else I go to the grocery store and like pick up.
Self-service, yeah.
I pretend I don't know what the person is saying when they're telling me to put my bag like in my backpack in the security bag. So I didn't hear. No, you're talking to him. And it works every single time.
Okay.
But not to my mates. They get got.
Oh, they get got.
100% of the time.
Oops, I just forgot what I was going to ask. Oh yeah, what is the nearest city? What's the name of the actual city that you're close to?
The nearest city is called Siping, which
Okay.
is
So not one I've heard of.
it's one that not many people in China have heard of. It's a 4 million person city. It's huge,
Oh wow.
but there's no shortage of things like that over there.
Yeah.
So it's just
Like 4 million over there is probably on the lower end in terms of the bigger cities, population density.
I can't say for sure, but whenever I've mentioned it to somebody from another city, ask them, like, try to gauge the size, they're like, nothing.
Yeah, right.
The nearest kind of big city, Shenyang, is I think 10 million people. That's just a number I heard somebody say. I have no idea if that's true.
Okay.
So if somebody's like on Wikipedia right now looking at Shenyang and I'm really wrong, it's tough, I guess.
Yeah, I don't have a
Yeah.
fact checker yet.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. We'll just assume I'm exactly correct.
So, what's the routine like at the school? What's a practice session consist of, or a day? You can even walk me through a full day.
Sure. Well, the day begins around 5:30 or whenever you set your alarm, because Tai Chi is at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes one of us will get up earlier than that because we'll have to make a fire. Very, very, very cold there in the winter. I won't have to deal with that this time, which is almost too bad, just because I like stoking the fire so much. It's very mechanical and meditative.
Mm-hmm.
But so we get up, we have Tai Chi. That's usually in silence, which is nice in the morning. It's still dark. Everyone's freezing and wearing like 20 sweatshirts. So it's a very kind of nice way to kind of like enter the day. 1 hour into the day, we have breakfast, which, depending on how Tai Chi went, that's sort of what sets the mood. If people were not learning as fast as Shifu wanted them that day, there's usually sort of like a somber, downcast silence that sort of falls over the breakfast tables.
Oh my goodness.
And then other days we're all, giving each other crap about everything and purposefully taking too long with the egg cutter because we know it's going to bother him. Like, just
the egg cutter?
It's a little, it slices a hard-boiled egg into slices because we like to put them on sandwiches.
Oh, right. Okay.
No, at the end, I decided, you know what, this takes too long. Fuck this. And I just ate my eggs. But that's a tiny little mundane detail out here in the real world. But at school, that was like, I'm just going to eat my eggs like this. And it was like a very big decision at the time.
That's so funny.
How odd.
Have you made friendships or connections at the school that you're going to keep in contact with for life, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Kung Fu relationships and friendships are just, there's like a depth to them that is almost immediate, and I've not found one exactly like it other places. And it's hard to describe, but in a long way, I'm answering yes. Like a lot of the people I've met, both here and there, are, we're going to know each other for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of the most meaningful relationships I've formed have been kind of over that, and you kind of have to. It's like, it's hard stuff we're doing, and that I think forms bonds.
Yeah. David Goggins talked about like how he was motivating like the other people in his group when he was going through the Navy SEAL Hell Week. I forget what they were called. Like they had like a troop name or something, but he talked about the importance of like supporting each other to make it all through to the end together. What's the food like over there?
Oh man, that's one of the things I'm most excited about. Yes, one of the things I'm most excited about. There's a very long list of things I'm the most excited about, but that's one of them, because over here I have to think about my food. I have to do stuff for it. I have to buy it and all this other shit that I don't have to do over there. All I have to do related to my food is like pick my plate up at the end and put it, like, not even in the sink, just by the sink is fine. Because really everything in the kitchen's taken care of. and the food is amazing. And there's a new chef this time, which I don't know what happened to Chefy, or Cookie before her, by the way. So
Well,
I'm
these are
interested to
great.
see what the new chef's name is, and what sort of dishes he's got for us. He used to work in a really nice restaurant too. So,
Oh, cool.
So
Okay, so he's coming in with a reputation.
he is, which I'm curious as to where Shifu got this guy, because most of the characters that work for him are real like, where'd you get this guy?
Oh my god,
Yeah.
awesome. And so the reason you said you don't have to like think about the food or anything is because it's all included in the cost of going to the school, right?
Yes. So yeah, I pay my tuition and I've got a place to live, and every single need is met. And the purpose of this is like I have one thing to think about, and that's my training.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I really like that they frame it that way.
Yeah. And it's important too, because if you're gonna travel just about halfway around the world and spend a bunch of time there, like that's what you should be focused on.
Yeah, I'm like trying to. So for the listeners, I guess just imagine for a moment what it would be like if you could take your greatest passion in life and commit all of your time to that and have all of your other needs met. So it's like you don't have to worry about anything except that one thing. I mean, a lot of people I don't think are in a position to do that right now. We have our full-time jobs, we have part-time jobs, we have, house chores, we have bills, we have, children, pets, plants. There's so many things that require our time.
Mm-hmm.
And the result of that is I think a very small portion of the pie is left at the end of the week for ourselves. So what you're doing is you're just going in head on to something that you can really commit all of your time to. I mean, like, are you spending more than 40 hours a week, doing your practice? And I would imagine you are.
Some weeks, definitely. It depends on the week, and it depends how busy I am with driving.
Mm-hmm.
Because I usually do the driving bit overnight,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have kind of the daytime to, when most people are being active is when I'm doing my sleeping.
I apologize. I'm talking about while you're there, while you're in China.
While I'm in China.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Just, I was talking about how you have the ability to just completely let go of everything else and only do Kung Fu. So I was trying to get a sense for about how many hours a week you think you're just doing that while you're in China.
Yeah, and I was thinking about my hours here. Definitely 40 that are part of like the day in, day out scheduled week that happens,
Mm-hmm.
and then however many hours like we self-train, and sometimes we end up hey, let's go fuck around, let's go for a hike, and
Mm-hmm.
We stop along the way and we'll train in a field for 2 hours. So I mean a couple hours 40 plus a few, give or take.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, I really like the idea that it's kind of all inclusive, I guess, if that's the right term. You
Mm-hmm.
you just pay your tuition, you go over there and you just work on your craft. That's really wonderful. How much more time do you think you'll be spending going over there? Do you have a goal in mind? Do you have an end in sight? Or is this just something you consistently want to cultivate for as long as you have the financial means and free time to do so?
Definitely closer to the second. I think of my school there as my home.
Mm-hmm.
Same with my school here. So those two will be the constants. Somebody else asked me like, "Hey, how long do you think you're going to keep coming back or going back to the school?" And I said, just to kind of answer it in a succinct way, I said like till one of us dies, like till I kick it or Shifu does.
Okay.
So for a long time
Mm-hmm.
is how long I'm gonna keep
That's
doing it, hopefully.
fantastic. Are there other parts of the world that you think you'd like to do the same thing, or are you pretty committed at this point to that one country, that one location, that one school?
I am committed to those things. I'm also committed to making myself, kind of going forward, a very well-rounded martial artist. I have some grappling in my past from being a wrestler, but that was a long time ago. So I want to focus on an art that also has some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Not as a full-time thing, but just to have some recent experience with it. sometime in the next year or so, and that'll most likely be or an attractive place to potentially do something like that is Brazil.
Oh.
Or Japan. Anywhere that jiu-jitsu is big.
Okay.
For example.
And so for the people listening who say like, wow, like, you know, I've got this job, I'm kind of stuck here in Maryland, this kid's out just traveling the world and doing martial arts. Tell people how you made it possible. I mean, like, is it as simple as what you're saying? You come back to America, you just do Uber and Lyft and you just put everything away and then you go back to the school and spend it and repeat the process? Or am I missing something there?
That is what I do now. But it kind of took a lot of like whittling down to balance things that way. When I started doing all this, I had a lot of stuff, like just all the stuff from life, like all I had my kids' toys, like my not I don't have kids. I had my toys from when I was a kid.
From when you were a kid. Yep.
Yeah. And stuff from high school and stuff from I'm gonna want to remember that one day, and just everything. Then I've moved this stuff like 10 times, I guess.
Wow.
Over the years. So I mean, a lot of it was weighing me down. Part of what I sort of discovered along this kind of kung fu journey is the concept of minimalism. And specifically, there's a guy, I think he was on Facebook or he was somewhere on the internet. His website was Becoming Minimalist. This guy, Josh Becker, I think his name is.
Now there's a podcast with that same title, right?
It's probably him.
I'm almost positive I've heard of that before.
It's probably the same guy.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he had a pod, but it makes sense. He's his stuff has gotten bigger.
He probably just has one microphone.
Maybe. What a boner. But actually, he's lots of just nice little wisdom about like how to slowly cultivate a life where you can be a little more mobile like that. And it started with just like kind of getting rid of old stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's step one for people that want to do this.
Step one, and it's hard and it's scary because we have all these attachments to things, like emotional ones, like, oh, my brother got me that, which, the answer to that is so. But you go through the first time, and there's like the stuff that's laying around that like, oh, I'm just sick of looking at that. I'm glad to be rid of it. Mm-hmm. And then the first round of that goes by, and you have more room, and you go, oh man, that feels good. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly that thing your brother gave you doesn't. You're like, well, maybe that waits till the third round. But now you've got a whole new layer of stuff. You're like, you know what, that felt good. I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. And eventually you're getting rid of like stuff your mom it depends how aggressive you are with it.
Yeah.
I kind of had this motto doing it where I just kept saying to myself, the scythe must be remorseless.
Oh wow.
And
whoa.
And I kind of stand up straight when I say it and deep voice. And I got rid of a bunch of stuff that at the time I was like, I'm gonna miss that, and like I haven't thought of any of it since then. It's not so. Basically, step one is paring down your stuff to the essentials. Okay. And this doesn't mean don't appreciate your stuff. Like if it's something you truly love and appreciate, keep it, for God's sakes. Like that's what we should be doing, is like enjoying our stuff. Mm-hmm. But get rid of all the extra crap. That makes it too so that when I have to move, I don't have to like get a storage unit or like trouble my parents with a bunch of, I do leave what little stuff I have there.
I do burden them though.
Yeah, some like the right amount, I think. Yeah. So that's a big part of it. Now it's gotten to the point where I've kind of like really leaned into the whole minimalism thing, and now like I'll see somebody approaching and I can smell from a mile away if they're going to try to give me something. Like, oh, Matt, here we get. No, it's cool. I've gotten good at, no, it's cool. And like, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, I don't want it. It's very nice.
Nice, dude.
I appreciate it, but I don't want it.
Cool. So what would step 2 be for somebody who's planning to kind of uproot?
Know that the thing you're going to go try and do is something you love or have some sort of strong inkling. I was doing Kung Fu for 8 months before I actually got on the plane. Mm-hmm.
It's actually not even that long, really. But
no, it's not. I was still a baby. I'm still a Kung Fu baby.
Yeah.
but I was pretty certain at that point. Like I like this stuff. I'm confident. I think doing something like that first, or at least having like a toe in the world, so you have some concept of like how deep the water is a good idea before you uproot everything and commit to like a year there. We had a guy, this fucking guy, Ian. I can't start talking about Ian because we only have however much time we have. But he went to study kung fu in China, and it wasn't for him. And he'd never done any physical anything before, and he was just miserable. He was just miserable the whole time, because I think he just kind of pictured the end result, which was like being cool and being strong and good at kung fu, and didn't picture any of like the middle, the huge, long, dense middle of doing all the hard work. So he didn't know that he loved it. He was just in love with the idea of like being whatever the thing at the end was.
Okay.
So have at least, I said, a strong inkling, some idea in your head that this is something you love or can love, or maybe it's not, and tough. Stick with it. You'll learn something.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's all too easy to give up, I guess, before you get to the good parts. And it's like you never really know what you were missing out on. Any last word of advice then before we move on for people who are interested in doing something like what you've taken on? A step 3, if there is one.
I think I'd actually backtrack a bit and say like there's another kind of step 1, and that's if whatever thing you're gonna go do is a martial art of some kind, start looking for a school first. That's a very big important step.
Okay.
And it begins like when you get in the car and head there. That's where it starts.
Cool. Okay. So in other words, you feel like you did a good amount of research in both the school in Parkville and then the one in China before knowing like there was like a feeling like where it's this is it. This is the one that fits with me.
For the school in China, I did a lot of research. For my school in Parkville, Goes Kung Fu, it was just the atmosphere and the people. It was serendipitous, and it was very quickly it was obvious what had been missing.
Yeah,
for me.
Now, so I want to go a little deeper here and talk about some changes that have happened in you that have sort of run in parallel with the timeline of your study of martial arts. You are someone that had a drinking problem. You would agree with that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you were also overweight.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm looking at a guy now who doesn't drink and is in excellent physical health. So,
well, thank you.
what, where's the connection? Did you have this idea that you were going to put down the drinking and lose the weight prior to getting involved in martial arts? Or did the two sort of did the two keep fueling each other? Because I think a lot of people out there are looking for, what to do in terms of like, okay, like I know that I'm drinking too much. Like, how can I change this? I want to eat better. I mean, like, so where was the motivation for you to make those incredible changes that you have?
As far as the stopping drinking, it was a very big unmovable part of my life. Like I would still say things like, "Oh, this time I'm gonna stop," but I had really also, or at least part of me, had accepted like this is part of me and will be part of me.
So in other words, mentally, there was a time when you were thinking like, I'm just a drinker and it's always going to be that way.
Yeah, I will die this way.
Okay.
Eventually, that's the thing is drinkers can kind of live forever, just not necessarily a high quality of life that whole time.
Sure.
So I'm afraid I can't really give anybody advice there, just because quitting any sort of addiction is a very personal journey. And I'm not saying I wouldn't want to share mine, because I'll gladly share it with anybody. But it's personal in such that you've kind of got to figure out what it is yourself. You've got to try different things.
I respect that.
Some people can do the AA or NA. That's Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. some people can go that route and it works for them. And I've known a lot of people who have, put that into practice and it works for them and it's changed their lives. But it's not for me. It's not kind of what I found success with. But I'd gladly talk about that individually with people. But essentially, you asked if one fuels the other. The fitness and everything. I just don't think at this point I would even want to drink or anything like that. Just because it doesn't. It seems so counter to what what it is I do every day. But as far as all the weight loss too, that was a direct result of just kind of sticking with Kung Fu. I mean, it's the best full body exercise I've ever done. And I mean, I did in wrestling and cross country, so I was doing all kinds of different stuff back in high school.
Did you change your diet that much when you were losing the weight?
At first, because I did go about this. One of the reasons I was looking to martial arts to begin with is because I knew, okay, I'm making these changes. I'm not drinking. That's one element. The other is I need to sort of attain mastery over my body some way. And I had ideas. Maybe that can be yoga. Maybe that can be just, the gym. A lot of people have kind of gym habits that keep them healthy and strong. So I had to kind of figure out what that thing was going to be. And I did. And I also, part of that was not eating just the retail diet every day, which is usually whatever is 50 feet away. And isn't necessarily very good for you. And in most cases, it's terrible. So the diet did improve a lot. I was using one of the fitness apps to sort of count calories.
Probably MyFitnessPal.
It was MyFitnessPal. It was blue. It was blue. And,
Under Armour bought them.
Is that what happened? It was. I just stopped using it because eventually, I'd used it for so long and so effectively that I knew all this stuff. I didn't need to keep track of this was 300 calories because I was kind of logging all that just in a sub process in my brain anyway. But it was really informative. It taught me a lot about nutrition because I've never really known anything. Now, however, I train so much that my caloric needs are stupid. I don't have any idea what a number would be.
Yeah.
So pretty much when I get hungry, I just go and eat everything I want. And it's great.
No, that sounds like a wonderful existence.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Well, I know what it's like to do heavy, intense training. And yeah, I can agree with you too that the need for calories just goes way up because your body's just burning them.
It's fun.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so kind of coming across the finish line here, going forward. So you're heading back now for your third time. You're going to potentially start cross-training in some other martial arts platforms in different countries. Paint me a picture of what the next 5 years looks like.
Definitely some Muay Thai. I want to have a fight or two there.
Okay, and would you do that in Thailand? Would you study that in Thailand?
That would be in Chiang Mai, Thailand, at a place called Lana. My girlfriend Anna was there a few months ago, and she had a fight, and her first fight. And it was,
my God!
Really
cool.
Cool. I've got a video. I think it's on her Facebook, or maybe she sent it to me. And it starts. You just hear an announcer go round one, fight, and then some very distinctly Thai music is playing, and it's the Street Fighter-iest thing I've ever seen with my own eyes. So it was a video, so I didn't see it with my own eyes, but that is real. God, she's cool. So yeah, I'm gonna probably go to that same one because she's been there, and another fellow I know has been there, and it looks pretty good and legit, and there's a lot of good instructors there. So there's that. I'd like to do some jiu-jitsu in Brazil. Now, you don't need to go to any of these countries, by the way, to find good, insert whatever martial art you're talking about.
Okay.
Some of the best kung fu is in America.
Okay, I believe it.
And the same, jiu-jitsu and everything. But part of it is the experience of going and actually being in this place. Waking up, hey, there's the beach. I'm going to train there today.
That sounds so cool.
Yes. And, eating street food in Thailand every night. Yeah, true. I could learn stuff here, but like I'd like to kind of remove myself, pick up, go, and just kind of really, really live in it for a while. So that's the importance of actually going to the place, not necessarily the quality of it, though it is, if you find a good place, high quality instruction. But just the overall experience.
Just immersing yourself in the culture.
Yeah. And I'm underlining that because if anyone's listening and thinking, oh man, I really want to do, whatever martial art, but I can't afford to go to, whatever place it's from, don't even make that a consideration. Like find a place near you. Find a place near you because there is something, and try it out for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that too because you want to make sure that you can stick with it and that you like it before you invest that much more time.
Yes.
I think the amount of time you spent before you headed out was just right. It's like it wasn't too little, but you didn't let anything like hold you back. You really knew what you were going after, and I admire it. I mean, I think it's great. This is, like I said, the fact that you're going to China now for your third time in less than 2 years. I mean, that's pretty cool. I'm looking at someone who really knows what they want out of life right now.
I do. It feels great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. So, what before we sign off here, like, is there any sort of plugs? Is there any way you would want people to maybe follow you, connect with you, see what you're doing, anything like that?
I think the best way to check out what I'm doing is I've put a couple of things that I'm working on YouTube lately that are not kung fu exactly, but I've been sort of like playing just kind of playing with my weapons a lot, like my staff and swords, and then I've got like these two double staffs that sort of are I'm just kind of waving them around, and it's kind of becoming more of a dance than anything else, and that's come out of like practicing kung fu. And I don't know, I think it's neat looking, and I have a lot of fun doing it, and I'm putting it up on. I'm taking a ton of videos with different music, but I'm putting some of them up on YouTube just so I can kind of show people. But I think they're neat, and you should check them out. If you Matt Sherbert, which yes is spelled wrong, but that's what people called me growing up, like middle school. Like, yeah, Matt Sherbert. Herbert being my last, so Matt Herbert, but put an S in front of it. Matt Sherbert on YouTube. And if you just like, I think if you type like Kung Fu Freestyle, I come up that way.
Oh, okay,
well.
Cool, fantastic.
Yeah.
Why don't you sign us off here with another Simpsons line?
All right. Ooh. The first thing that came to mind, it's a little bit of dialogue instead of a line, but it's when Homer and Lisa are leaving the museum they broke into because she wanted to see the Egyptian exhibit, and they're talking about how they'll remember the song forever. And then Homer starts, he's like, "Oh, I still have it in my head," and he starts like whistling, do 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 do. Dad, that's the Old Spice song. Oh, well, that's a good song too. And then they both start with like kind of singing along.
Oh my God. Yeah, we gotta binge some episodes when you get back. So yeah, cool. So I'll have you back on maybe after you come back, and we'll see how round 3 treated you.
I'd like that.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks for having me.
Hey man, thanks so much for coming on.